you were pushing back, I think, against some forces on the right um, that are taking the view. I'll identify this loosely with Megyn Kelly, but there may be others who have the same view. It's a position that you describe as no enemies to the right. To summarize kind of what Megyn said, she basically said, look, I'm not going to criticize Tucker Carlson because she said he's a really good friend of mine. And so whether he's an anti-Semite or not, I don't really care because he's a good guy as far as I'm concerned. And with Candace Owens, she said, well, she's a young mom. She's got a bunch of kids. She's facing a lot of issues. And so if she's a raging anti-Semite, I'm just not going to go there. Our enemies are on the left. Now, it's her prerogative to say that, but I'd like you to analyze that position for a moment. It certainly hasn't been my position, but there are people who push back on me and go, well, Dinesh, why are you taking this kind of position? Why are you calling out people on our own side? How do you kind of adjudicate responsibility? We are in a fight with the left, and there is a sort of reasonable position that says, hey, listen, if we are two teams, our team should come together in taking on the bad guys. And if we divide our own forces, that will be to our own detriment. How do you make sense of all this?
Well, it's funny you say to take on the bad guys. I think it's a mistake to think bad guys can only be on one side. You know, when I summarize the Babylon Bee's mission, I often try to put it as succinctly as I can. I say our mission is to ridicule bad ideas. Notice I didn't say ridicule the left. I said ridicule bad ideas can live anywhere. They can be on the left or the right. And if you're not willing to confront them, if you're not willing to confront bad ideas and bad actors wherever they are, then you're not in a fight of good versus evil. You're just in a fight of your side versus their side. And it doesn't any longer become about what's good and what's true. And so I've heard the argument. What you articulated, I think you accurately represented what Megyn Kelly had said. I think, others have put it in different terms. They've framed it differently. They're talking about the need for unity. They use that word where they're, what they mean is we need to win. The goal is to win, politically, of course, culturally. And in order to do that, we need to have unity. We need to be working together. We don't want to be, undermining each other, and infighting will inhibit us. It will handicap us. It will put us at a disadvantage because the left is going to stick with their own. They're going to fight as a unified front. On the surface, I think that sounds good. It sounds reasonable. It makes a lot of sense. You certainly don't want to be a fractured and divided movement going into battle. Of course, battle's a good analogy for that, right? If your own forces are divided against each other, you're not going to fight the enemy very effectively. But I like to try to frame what I mean by the enemy in terms of what's good and what's wrong, what's right, what's wrong. I don't think the bad guys are explicitly or exclusively on the left. I think a lot of the worst ideas are on the left, but not exclusively. So, when I say that I reject the no enemies to the right principle, I explain my reasoning for it. I think the reason that that's a bad principle is because it's what it's designed to do. From my perspective, this is what I truly believe. It's not designed to make sure that we're actually unified so that we can win. I think it's designed to allow for extremists, for radicals, for the bad actors on the fringes of the right to rise to more power and prominence that they would otherwise have because they're doing it unchallenged. It's a principle that they constantly want you to abide by. Now, they're happy to attack you, especially if you criticize them. They just want to be untouched so that they can be mainstreamed. And I don't think that that's very wise. And I don't think that's a strategy for winning either, because as I explained in one of my posts, it's like if you find out if you're diagnosed with cancer, and I think we have cancer on the right, that's why I'm using this analogy. But if you're diagnosed with cancer and you decide I'm not going to treat it, then what's going to happen? Well, the cancer is going to spread and it's going to kill you. That's not a strategy for winning. It's not a strategy for thriving and finding success. You got to deal with the cancer. You've got to cut it out, or you're not going to be healthy and you're not going to be able to fight anyone or anything. And so I think it's just two different perspectives. One perspective is we got to unite if we're going to win. The other perspective is we need to kill the cancer if we're going to survive and be healthy enough to fight. And so that's my perspective. That's where I land on it. And I don't think, I'll just one more thought here and I'll let you respond, but I don't think that winning is even possible if you've united with the wrong people, overlooked the terrible ideas that they're advancing, and you're joining in a movement that is now post-constitutional, revisionist, engages in all kinds of identitarian, collectivist, scapegoating, and all of these things, these grievance-based narratives that mirror the woke left. If you're abandoning your principles, if you're trampling on the Constitution and saying that we're not going to fight by the by the standards that we used to, conservatism didn't conserve anything, we have to throw it out the window, and we got to go really hard with this authoritarian, woke right mindset. Then how is that winning? I don't see how that's winning. You're not actually defeating the enemy. You're becoming more and more like the enemy, or you're becoming more and more like the caricature they've always made of you.
Guys, when I first came to America around 1980, I had a mere $500 in my pocket. Now, if I had been super frugal and not spent a penny of that money, what do you think it would be worth now? What could it actually buy today compared to what it could buy in 1980? Answer: less than $130. Why is that? Because the US government, through the Fed, is constantly printing money. Now, when the government prints money, you got more money chasing the same amount of goods and services, so money goes down in value, goes down in purchasing power, it buys less. The Fed has been at this since 1913. That's why a dollar today can only buy what a few cents could buy in 1913. And the government continues to print oceans of money. It never stops. An ounce of gold reached a high of $850 in 1980. It's worth around $3,900 an ounce today. So historically, over time, gold has gone up and up in value. Dollars have gone down and down in purchasing power. What about in the last 12 months? Well, gold is up over 40%. I believe now is the time for you to check it out. Find out how you can diversify your savings with gold and silver. And this is why I've partnered with Goldco. Goldco offers the best customer service for precious metals ownership. They are also the only gold dealer that offers a first-time gold buyer rebate of up to 10% in bonus silver on qualified purchases. Now, there's no better offer out there, so check it out. Learn more about how to safeguard your savings from the dollar's decline. It's very simple. Here's where you go: DineshGold.com. Easy to remember. Go to DineshGold.com.